Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we explore the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. It's an opportunity where we can hear about what it is that's given people their sense of identity and their sense of belonging. And without them sharing their stories of how they gain their sense of belonging, we may not understand what it is that helps us to gain our sense of belonging. And this week, I have a really special guest. I know I say this every week, but this week we got a really special young woman. She's doing things and I think she's going to change the world with some of the things that she's doing. And her name is Bakul Gupta. And she is the co-founder and CEO of a company called Deliver Biosciences. I'm going to let her explain it later on. And as you can see, or what you will see, she's got a beautiful slide which illustrates what she's doing. But I'm going to start by asking the first question, which is, can you tell me what it is or what it was that gave you your sense of identity and sense of belonging as you were growing up?
Yeah. Hi, Wayne. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Great. Thanks for the invitation first. Yeah, lovely to be here. So just to get started, I just wanted to give a couple of lines as to what we do at Deliver Bio. So as Wayne kindly mentioned, I am one of the founders and the CEO for this company called Deliver Biosciences. We're based here in the UK, in London, in King's Cross. And what we are really driven by at Deliver Bio is essentially making curative therapies for the masses. So we want to make sure that there are curative treatments for fatal diseases such as cancer, autoimmunity, diabetes, etc. A lot of neurodegenerative diseases, which right now either don't have cures or are generally just managed as diseases. So when we set out the company back in 2019, so we've been going on for, well, 5 years. We turned 5 in a week.
Birthday.
And we were, very driven by this mission that both me and my co-founder came up with, which is essentially making curative therapies for everyone who needs curative treatments. And the way we do that is by using our nanoparticle-based technology, which allows us to inject nanoparticles into patients to create therapies directly within their bodies. We're starting off with blood cancers as a first product, but really what we're developing is a platform technology which allows us to create therapies for a lot of indications.
Brilliant. We're going to go into that a little bit more later on, but what I was going to ask again is just tell us a little bit about what it was when you were growing up, before all of the ideas about Deliver Bioscience. What was it that gave you that kind of like sense of belonging, your drive, your passion? Can you start us off over there?
Yes, sure. So I come from India. I grew up in India. Then I did my PhD in undergrad in Australia. And for me, the sense of belonging came from essentially what I saw my parents do. So my parents are doctors. So my dad's a surgeon. My mom's a gynecologist. And for me, from the very beginning, I think I saw them really get excited and happy when they were able to treat patients or help patients in any which way. So for me, I think it started from there. It started from home, seeing my parents really drive that joy from treating patients, and I wanted that for myself. So that sense of
go on.
So that sense of belonging came from the fact that I want to create something in this world that can help patients. Now, back then, obviously, I did not know what that was. For me, it was a direct route was, oh, let's become a clinician like my parents. But then as I grew up and I studied more sciences, I think it developed into what I am right now, like a scientist, because I thought that, doing research gave me more tools and expanded my horizon just outside of what is currently known in medicine. So coming up with new technologies, developing that skill set, etc. So that's where it started. And then, yeah, it's been going on ever since.
Okay, so it was observing your parents and seeing their compassion and passion, I'm going to call it, for making a difference in people's lives in whichever medical field that they were in.
Exactly.
And you picked up on that. You wanted to make a difference originally as a clinician, potentially as a clinician. So I'm gonna just ask that question then. You saw your parents as clinicians, right? You were thinking about becoming a clinician. Why did you then switch and say, no, I'm not going to become a clinician? Was there any driving factors which kind of like said yes or no in this case?
Um, I think the drive, like it was quite, so okay. So when you're back, I don't know, 15, 16. So as I said, like I was down the path of becoming a clinician.
Mhm,
So in India, like you have to write some entrance exams to become a clinician. So that's the first stage,
mhm,
which I did pass, but then it wasn't, I wasn't getting the institution or the college that I really, really wanted to study in.
mhm,
So for me, that was in a way a signal saying
mhm,
that, okay, yes, you want to do this, but do you want to spend another 1 or 2 attempts trying
mhm,
to get into the college that you really want to, or you go down a path which is equally good
mhm,
and gets you there faster. So for
mhm,
me, like pace and getting things done fast is like something that's inherent within me. So for me, so it wasn't like giving up a dream, but it was more like, okay, what is the alternative? And that's something that I'll come to later. Like that's something that we do all the time when you're running a biotech or a startup, like coming up with alternative options. And I think I started again at 16 or 17 when I was 16 or 17. So for me, so choosing a subject that was still related to medicine, but gave me, as I said, like that expansive view of what else can we do. Because very early on, I understood that, yeah, clinician is one route, but that's not the only route
mhm.
to help patients. And I'm very driven by like, yeah, helping patients come what may. Uh, you don't have to be clinician. You can serve others or serve the patients that you really want to, in different ways. So I went down the path of doing research, and
Right.
that's why I think I was very clear from my undergrad days what I wanted to do. So I did my undergrad, did my PhD, did my first postdoc, did my second postdoc at Imperial,
Mhm.
and then started Deliver Bio. So for me, it was very, very clear and structured in my head that yes, this is the path I want to go to.
So it sounds to me, once you had made your decision, right, there was no turning back. It was kind of like, this is the route which I'm seeing, yeah, and I'm gonna follow that to the nth degree to where it can have a natural fulfillment of what I think can be achieved. Am I right in saying that?
Yes and no. Like so
Okay.
there were elements where, like as I said, like my undergrad, PhD, etc., was very clear in my head. But then after my postdoc, there was a stage where I was like, okay, can I just go join another company or a pharma
Mhm,
company where again they're driven by a similar
mhm,
mission, or start Deliver by or start my own venture.
mhm,
So
mhm,
that was like again a decision point for me after
mhm,
the first decision point at 16 or 17 to do
mhm.
to study medicine or not.
Right.
So I think like I consider these two as my main major decision-making points in my life right now, or in the past, where I
Right.
had to really decide, think and decide what I
Mhm.
want to to do and how it aligns with my ultimate vision of treating
Yeah.
patients or helping patients.
Right. So you've highlighted that there was you've had kind of like two major decision points. So the first being at 16, do I do medicine? Do I go and do something else? What were your I'm probing a little bit. What were your who were your influencers, your confidants, your supporters, and what was their opinions, and how much of their opinions did you take on board when making those decisions? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think early on, so at 16, 17, so like it was driven by what I saw my parents do. So that's why I wanted to be a clinician. At the same time, they also told me not to be a clinician because of the number of hours that you spend away from family or away, like just working. But I think from the very beginning, I've been very set in my mind what I wanted to do. So if you support me in that sense, great. But if you don't, I'll still come up with a way. So in this case, it wasn't a clinician thanks to like, yeah, me not entering that number one institution in India. plus me still wanting to go down the path of helping patients. So I think like I carved my own journey in that sense. So I did research and then ended up doing, yeah, the biotech venture we're doing right now. And in the second instance, again, it was similar. So I wouldn't say, so luckily for me, like I've been supported throughout, like from family, with by family, by friends, etc. But it's also unconventional for someone to go down the path that I have, especially running a biotech at the age I started, as the first real job that I had after academia. So I would say like it's more driven by what I really wanted to do, and I saw this as an opportunity, and the timing for me was correct. Like I didn't have uh I wasn't married or anything of that sort. I didn't have kids. So I was like, okay, if I really want to test
Yeah.
and see if I can really survive in the biotech world as with our own company, this is the time to do it. So I didn't want to wait until the 10 years, get that extra experience by
Yeah.
working with some other
Yeah.
company. So for
Right.
me, like I think it's always been driven by like that, my North Star, so to say. And I take decisions based on that. Again, as I said, like I have been supported by family, friends, etc. But at the same time, if I wasn't, I think I still would have done something very similar.
Yeah, right. So your family is there definitely as a support. They help gain your sense of identity, belonging clearly. Yeah, just from the fact that it was because of your parents and their passion and compassion, which gave you your vision as to what you want to do. I also wanted to know then, because you once you'd finished your undergrad degree, you also just previously mentioned that you had gone to Australia to do your postgraduate studies and your PhD. Yeah.
Grad. So my
How
right after school, I went to Australia.
straight after. So
Mhm.
what was that decision? Because that's a separation. You've told us about how your family has been your motivator. Now you're having to separate from them and go across to Australia. What was that like for you?
To be completely honest, I don't remember the initial years. I was like, I don't remember how I did it, because if I think back, I'm like, that was crazy. Like to leave your family, to leave your country, and go to a completely different country where I had no friends and we had no family or
Mhm,
no extended family as well. Like I'm Indian, so like we have big families, but even then,
mhm,
I did not have anyone in Australia. So I think like it was again driven by the courses and the subjects that I wanted to do. So like that's why I chose Australia. So I studied nanotechnology in my undergrad. And Australia was like one of the only countries that offered it as a degree. They offered it as a course, so like a Bachelor of Science in Nanotechnology with 1 year of research. So it was ticking off all the boxes. Surprisingly, US or UK, which was like the normal countries where most of my friends ended up, they didn't offer it as a degree, so they were offering it as a course. Now some obviously these countries do that, but back in 2005, 2006, that wasn't an option.
mhm,
And again, this was discovered in a way by my mom. So she
mhm,
was very keen on, again, she understood that I really was passionate about doing something in research, creating something for myself. So she found these universities. She found Australia to be like one of the hubs. So I think I have to give it to her. I didn't know none of this work myself. So she did all of it, and she gave it to me on a platter. That's what Indian parents do, I guess. And I was like, okay, this sounds good. And then after that, so this is again when I turned 18 in Australia. So
mhm,
again, I spent 18 until I was 30. So like 12 years, 11 years in Australia. Moving away from family, as I said, like I don't remember much of it, but like it must have been great because in a way it's good, right? I don't remember the hardships. The hardships came from the fact, like, so again, luckily for me, like my friend circle that was built in the first year of my undergrad still is my friend circle. And I just got lucky with who I hung out with. I did not have any bad experiences. I did not have any, I wouldn't say I didn't have hardships. Hardships are always there, like when you're going to a different country. And again, like speaking a language, yes, we speak English in India, but it wasn't natural for me, right? I spoke Hindi at home. So for me, like learning how to communicate in English every single day for every single thing
mhm.
was, I wouldn't say a challenge, but it was something that I learned. It
Yeah,
wasn't natural to me. But now after whatever 15, 20 years, it's natural, right? And it's like I don't even think in Hindi anymore. It's like all English because of work and because of the way I've evolved, I would say. Uh, so hardships, yes. Just to give one last thing. I don't remember my first 3 years in Australia. I do remember my PhD because that was the hard bit, right? I
Right.
remember all of it. That's where I think like I really and that's also the place where I think I really grew. And it became really, really, really set in my mind that I really want to do this. That's when I was like, there's no going back from here because I really enjoy I really enjoy what I'm researching on, what I've studied so far, and I really see the potential of this.
So there's a couple of things which I just want to pick up on. It sounds to me, because nanoparticles and nanotechnology, which is what you kind of like specialize in, it sounds to me from a very early age. What was it that got your interest in nanotechnology, etc.? And why? Because yeah, why was it? What was it about that?
Again, so going back to the research that my mom did, my
Mhm,
mom and dad were very, I think they still are, they're very good with identifying things that are upcoming and new. So they did that with my brother. He studied bioinformatics. No one in India or even in the world like was studying bioinformatics as a degree. Same with me. Nanotech was like something that was up and coming. So
mhm,
biotech was a thing back in 2004-05, whereas nanotech was like, oh yeah, nanomaterials, nanoparticles. Yeah, people
mhm,
know of it, like, but it's as I said, like there were no degrees really.
mhm,
But when we dig deeper into it, like it was a subject, it was a course that involved all the disciplines of science, and that's what I loved. So it
mhm,
was physics, it was chemistry, it was biology, it was quantum computing, material science, etc. And that's what I really wanted to learn. So again, driven by because I very firmly, I don't know where it came from, but I very firmly believe that it's not going to be one science that makes me do what I would really want to do. So it was the multidisciplinary aspect that I really liked about the course. And in the end, like after towards your third and fourth year, you could choose which stream you want to go down to, whether
yeah,
it's quantum computing, so like more physics, more chemistry based, more biology based. And that's when I chose nanomedicine because I was like, okay, I know nanotechnology, I know nanoparticles. Now I really want to apply it to the medical field because that was how I saw myself growing into this vision of yes, I want to treat patients.
yeah.
So I think like this was very evident, and it was a course that I did in nanobiotechnology as well. So I think like for me, it was again the research that my mom did, and then she was able to convince me that yes, it is a good course. And biotech was too so I like working with new things. So for me, biotech was like too established. Everyone was doing biotech, and I didn't want to do biotech. So I was like, okay, how do I still do research but do something really cool and new? And that's why I think like I adapted really well to a research scientist like
Mhm,
mindset, right?
mhm,
Because I didn't want to be doing the mundane. It's not mundane. I know biotech is really cool. Now I do biotech.
yeah.
But like for me back then, I was like, no, everybody's doing biotech. Why would I do it? So
There's something which comes out as you're speaking about one, the respect and the love that you have for your mum, that you listened to her, right? When she was saying, you know what, I know you, and I know that you would probably be very interested in this, even though you didn't necessarily know that that was the field, but she was right. Yeah.
yeah. Oh
I'm,
yeah,
go- I
definitely.
think I'm going to call this one Mum Knows Best, right?
Yeah, don't tell her that.
Right. But the fact that you listened to her, and she also recognized that you've got this inherent curiosity, and that curiosity isn't just to do the same thing as everybody else. You're your own person. You've got your inherent curiosity, though. Yeah. So, am I right in saying
Yes,
that?
again, like so she knew it before I did. So as I said, like all these both these things came to me once I was doing my PhD because I really, really loved doing sciences then. But somehow she knew it like 8 years before that.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't know how, but that's I don't know, mom's intuition, whatever it is. But for me it was yeah, I came to know a lot later because I was again for me it was patients, 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 right? How do I get to them?
Mhm.
And the easiest path was becoming a clinician, but then I also felt demotivated or rejected. I was like, oh no, I'm going to show clinicians that yes, I can do something without being a clinician, but still treating
Mhm.
patients.
Mhm.
So it was again like this stubbornness, if you want to call it that, yes, I can do it. And also this belief that I really can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I and
Um,
I understand that. It was kind of like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Yeah, I'm gonna prove you wrong. You lot missed out on me. That's what you
yeah, again, like this, you're 16, 17, right? Like I'm like, I'm not sitting here like for 2 years just studying for these stupid entrance exams or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I have better things to do. And in hindsight, definitely, I'm very glad I didn't go down that path.
Yeah, there was another thing which you also mentioned, which was about the fact that it was when you don't remember the first 3 years of your undergrad, but when the struggle came, i.e., during your PhD, that's where you found the growth. Can you expand and explain that a little bit?
So first 3 years of my undergrad, I just remember me and one other girl being the only two women in my nanotech course as a whole. So again, like as I said, like there were people from physics, chemistry doing it like in the first couple of years because it was quite generic, like Bachelor of Science. But then when we got specialized into this nanotech world, it was only two women. So that's what I remember of my undergrad. I'm like, and I think we can come to that later. So it was like, oh, why am I me and this other girl, the only two women doing physics and chemistry and nanoscience. Now I know for the better why that was the case, like after 10 years. But so that's what I remember. And I remember it's undergrad. I remember a lot of partying, going out, etc. I don't remember the hard bit. The hard bits were like, oh yeah, how am I going? Like, so I was funded, so I had a scholarship, etc. But how am I going to do? I don't know, buy these little things that you want to buy, like eat in a fancy restaurant. You don't do that. I only did that when I scored well in a subject, and still I was like, oh my. Sometimes, like honestly, a yogurt, like a berry. I love mangoes. So it was mango yogurt used to be my prize. I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I got a distinction or a high distinction or whatever. This is what I remember from my undergrad.
Yeah.
In terms of the growth in PhD, so PhD, like I was fully funded. I used to get that stipend like here in the UK, very minimal. But that's when I would say that I still call it my first phase of when I started actually earning money, right? I was getting money. I didn't need support from my parents.
Mhm.
And I think that's when you start realizing the value, firstly, start realizing the value of money. I did that in undergrad as well, but this
Mhm.
is your money in a way, right? And that's where you like really cautious of spending it.
Mhm.
Uh, so and that's when I saw myself doing really like to some extent well, right? Like as compared to others, like how they were struggling versus, oh, my finance management was good. My science, like science of the research that I was doing was good. The number of hours I was putting in, I really didn't mind doing that. So I think like that's when I started realizing, yes, I can really be by myself, have no support, no family support as such, in terms of like the physical presence, and still do well.
Mhm.
I think that's how I started looking in deeper into myself.
Mhm.
Before that, it was again, everyone doesn't like again in my family, everyone's quite well educated. So I was like, for me, like doing an undergrad was no big deal. Like that was something that I had to do. But
Mhm.
whatever happened afterwards, doing a PhD, um, was something when I started really appreciating myself in a way, right? And seeing that yes, and believing that there's something that I can do,
Mhm.
and not really comparing myself to others. I think that really worked in my favor. Like a lot of introspection. And again, when you by yourself, even if you're living with friends or whatever, like you get that time, right, to yourself, and you're like, oh, what do I really want to do? Or what do I really want to achieve? Even though that was very clear for me, but how do I go about doing that? And that's been with me ever since, I would say. Like even now running a company, you have those decisions like pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
What do we want to do next? How are we going to do it? Do we have the money to do it? So I think, yeah, those are my strengths. And that's why, like, out of the two founders, I'm the CEO.
Yeah. Yeah.
My co-founder is the CSO.
Right. So I'm going to follow up on a couple of questions, a couple of points, right? You mentioned that when you were doing your undergrad, there was only two other female, there was just you and one other female. How did that make you feel in terms of your sense of identity, sense of belonging? Where were all the women in? Why were there not so many women? How has it been? And leading on from that, in deciding to start up your company as a female entrepreneur, as a female business owner, how has that also translated for you?
So the first question, being one of the two women, I loved it. I was like, because again, like you're in a class of whatever, because nanotech, like as I said, like in third, fourth year, like it became smaller and smaller in terms of the cohorts. So everyone knew me, right? Like because my note-taking skills and me attending every class was like the two things that people talk about even today. Because again, I'm international student. So for me, like I'm paying for every subject and every elective that I'm taking. So I attended every single lecture, and I did overtime as well, because again, I was like, oh, can I finish it early? And can I do more things?
Yeah.
So again, so for me, and because of that, like everyone came to me for notes. My handwriting is really good, so people like it was easy on the eyes; they could read it. Like we weren't typing every single thing back then,
Yeah.
and I was very thorough. So like everything that the the lecturer or the professor would say, it would be on my lecture notes, in my slides, in my notes. So because of that, I was a geek, right? I was popular because of that. Uh, so I didn't mind it at all. Whereas the other girl, she was good at as well. But for me, like I like the fact that people came to me for my notes and became friends because of that, right?
Yeah.
Completely selfish on their side, but I didn't mind it. I didn't know better, right? I was like, okay, this is what it is. Even in school, that was the case, right? In India, like again, on the notes and everything, like I knew that that's my strength. So I didn't mind it. I didn't think much of it. I was never like, I never felt anything else um, from that perspective, right? That, oh, you're a woman, you're a female student in this class. The lecturers and everything, like that was never a thing that was discussed, or I never felt it. And that's why I never thought about it. It's
Mhm.
only when, yes, so now it's a very different story. 15 years later, almost 20 years later now. I feel it a lot more, because number one, like people talk about it a lot more, which is good. Second, I am the face of what we do at Deliver Bio. So I'm the one speaking to external stakeholders. I'm the one going out fundraising. I'm the one marketing what we're doing. So I think I feel it a lot more now, where people definitely differentiate in terms of who you are based on how you look and
Mhm.
what the color of your skin is.
Mhm.
Um, as I said, like it's talked about a lot more now, but this is like something that I'm really irritated and passionate about at the same time. I'm like, why is it still the case? We're in 2024. Like,
Mhm.
as you know, like biotech, like any company that's led by a woman, like is severely underfunded just because it's led by a woman, or it's said that like, yeah, less than 2% of the women can raise capital, etc. I'm like, it shouldn't be based on who's leading and how we're leading. It's like really like if it's on merit and credit of what we're doing, base it on data, right? But it's not, because I know like especially biotech or like this startup environment is based on relationships, right? And if you're in I don't know, a men's club, yes, you know 10 more people, as opposed to, well, I'm not in a men's club. I cannot be in a men's club.
Yeah.
So yeah. So and it's also a trust game, right? This is what people say, that it's a trust game. So I'm like, well, why am I not trustworthy just because I'm not white, I'm not a man?
Mm.
This is something that, oh, it's very prevalent, and every woman founder that I've ever spoken to has spoken about it. I just think like, yeah, people talk about it, but I still think that people don't talk enough about the challenges that we go through. Because it's like, oh yeah, I know it's hard, deal with it. I'm like, well, that does not help me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, the support, right? Like some people don't even recognize it. Like I know a lot of my personal friends who were like, oh, I didn't realize that you had to go through that.
Mhm.
Because as white male people, they've never had to, right? So this was very striking to me when I spoke to like a few friends here, especially in the UK. They're like, oh, we didn't realize that. And I was like, really? Like
How could you
and
not?
how do you, yeah, not. And then now they do, because I've spoken to them about it. Like they've
Yeah.
seen a bit more in the on social media, etc. But still, they've never gone through it. It's not like they won't support women doing XYZ, but I think internally, because they've never seen it, they won't really promote it either, right? They
Mhm.
won't see it as a deficit in the society right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, as an
Yeah.
undergrad, I never felt that I loved being like the only or the second woman in the class, purely because of like I was able to offer some things that other people want, right? So it was like, okay, yeah. And no, and never, even during my PhD, undergrad, postdoc, even because I came from really big research groups, like 100 people, 80 people, it was very multidisciplinary. I think like I have to give credit to my PIs, like my ex-PIs, like both PhD and postdocs,
Mhm.
that they made sure that we never felt it as even if it was like 5, 6 women in the group.
Could I ask a quick question with regards to your PIs for your undergrad and for your postdocs? and for your PhD. Did you have female PIs or was it male PIs that you had?
Male until I came to the UK. All male. Yeah.
All male until you came to the UK.
Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds to me as though you had quite multidisciplinary or quite inclusive environments which you were working in.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. So as I said, I never felt that during my PhD. Undergrad, definitely not, right? Like undergrad, like we don't have like, yeah, in my research here as well, actually, yeah, male, my PhD, yeah. But they were great in terms of, again, like because of my work ethic, I've always been a teacher's pet. Let's just put it like that. My brother hates it when I say that, and he agrees to it. He's like, "You are," but maybe because of that, right? Like because of like what I was delivering, what I was able to do. Like I never felt it because I was always in the front of the class, whether it's a research group, etc.
Mhm.
But when you're running your own company, like you're just competing with yourself. There's no one else to compete with. And that's when you start again thinking about all these other things. And you face it. Like I face it on a regular basis. I'm not even shy about saying it because I think I shouldn't be the one who needs to be shy. It's the
Mhm.
society that like we're living in where people are still
Mhm.
debating whether we should put money behind women versus not.
So I'm very intrigued by this because I attended an event on Monday and I was shocked at the lack of male allyship within an engineering in setting. And even though I know it exists, but I just thought, why is it still in today's society where so much is being made about inclusion and making sure that people with differences are accepted? Why is it that we're still seeing that certain groups don't feel as if they need to engage in that conversation? And when we're talking about you going into business, right, and female entrepreneurs, female founders, that's a huge challenge for raising funds, etc., and securing business. So how have you tried to navigate that space then?
I think just to mention one more thing, I think
Mhm.
why is it still being talked about? Because really, like there are people who think that they're better than like so men do think like at certain level that they're better than women, right? There's
Mhm.
so much data saying otherwise now, but it's an intrinsic belief that no, we can do things better and we can do X, Y, Z better. It's like how people think that oh, men can do physics better or engineers are better engineers. I'm like, no.
Mhm.
Again, like so I think there's this as I said, this internal belief that people have grown up with or whatever, where they do things, and that's why I think like people who go out of their own niche or their own controlled environment are more adaptable. I very strongly believe that. Like when I went, so going back to your previous question, how hard it was from India to Australia and to the UK, then I think it worked in my benefit. The number of people I came across, like I would have never ever come across that many cultures and that diverse set of people that I met in India by itself. Like even if I was working throughout the country, like
Mhm.
India's a big country, but still it's very, very like it's Indian focused, right? Like you don't get to see other cultures.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was your question? I've completely
No,
forgot.
so I was asking, why is it that certain groups don't feel as if they need to participate in changing the narrative, which you've kind of answered because you've highlighted about the fact that many of them feel that they are better and therefore you can't tell me anything because I'm better. Yeah. But
I've had that. Like I've been told to my face that you shouldn't be the CEO, let someone else be the CEO because you're not one of us. I've been told that to my face. And I think it's just my to answer how I've navigated that is just me being stubborn. And I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
no,
So
no, as you said that, right? I was having a picture in my mind of a red rag and a bull, and it was based on what you've said. It was kind of what it's almost like going back to when you were 16, 17, and them saying, well, you're not going to go into the medical profession, etc. And you just kind of like barefaced said, I'm going to prove you wrong. I don't need to be in. And to me, it sounds exactly like what you're going to do right now. If
and And I've done it, right? Like raising funds, whatever, like we've raised funds, I've hired a team, we've been going on for 5 years through COVID, etc. So I'm
Mhm,
like, again, there's a lot of naysayers, right? Like then there's a lot of people who pull you down. So
mhm,
again, like you just have to have and this is when I started realizing you really, really, when people say that you need to have a thick skin, this is what they mean.
mhm,
Because again, like how are you going to achieve what you want to achieve if you start listening to all the noise around you?
mhm,
Um, and this is in my case, it's not always noise, right? It's like people I really want funding from, or I really want to hire, or really want to work with. But again, but then you realize that do you really want to work with them? Like
mhm.
if they've already told you on your face that they're not going to support you, even if they do participate in your fundraising round, even if they do become partners to your company, are they the right choice?
Yeah,
Not just for me personally, but for the company. Are they going to help the company grow?
yeah.
And deliver on the mission and the drive and the vision that we have?
Mhm.
The answer is possibly not, but highly unlikely.
Yeah, yeah. If they've already kind of like tried to undermine your position as a partner, because I think you've been behind a lot of the technology within the company as well, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, so like it's a nanoparticle based platform that we
yeah,
developed. So like that
yeah,
nanotech side comes from my foundations in that
yeah.
subject. Yeah.
So you're how I'd like to say is that you're integral to the success of the company. Without your ideas, without yourself and your co-founder, the two of you have come together with a vision as to where you want to see and how you want to get this delivered. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's our brainchild, right? So I'm not saying that we'll always be part of the company, even if it means
Mhm,
taking the company down. No, we're
mhm,
very agile that way. But yes, it's our idea. It's
mhm,
our hard work up until now. And
mhm,
like as I said, like if the company doesn't need us after 10 years, because yes, we have a very different skill set.
mhm,
Sure, like I'm happy to base it on again merit, right? And again, what the company needs. How are we going to drive that vision forward? But if you just tell me because you're too young, you're a woman, you're this and that, just based on how I look, I'm not going to take it. Like I'm never going to say yes, take
yeah.
my company away from me. No. But if you really mean it in the sense of yes, you need
Mhm,
to back like you need to step down, etc., or do something else, not be the CEO within the company because we want someone more experienced and they can take it forward to, I don't know, commercialization.
mhm,
Sure,
mhm,
I take that, but just based on who I am,
mhm.
no.
That's not, yeah, that's not optional.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not optional. There was something else I was going to ask you because it sounds to me like you work hard. You're very driven. So who's there? I know you've said about your family, but what other support mechanisms do you have for like when you're facing these challenges, facing these people who are saying to yourself, well, why are you the face of this company? Right? Who's there? Is there anybody there, right? Or which group of friends do you have around you to support you? And also, what mentorship have you received in order to say, I can do this, or to guide you along this pathway? Because I dare say it's uncharted water for you.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the support that I have, besides family, I think it is my advisors or like at a personal level, so they're not formally advisors to the company. But so the good thing is that I know where my gaps are and where I need help. So I always go and ask for help. I don't shy away from asking like for help. And that's why I think like I've got this really good set of personal advisors and mentors, mentors, more mentors, where I'm like, okay, I can go and talk to you about anything. Again, like not everything about the company because there are certain confidential aspects you can't
Mhm,
discuss, but more on like, oh, how do I handle such things?
mhm,
Um, and they've become more friends. Like even though they're very senior people, like right,
mhm,
like they're investors themselves, they've run companies by themselves previously, etc. So that's one group of people that I go or reach out to when I'm trouble or I feel troubled. And the second set is I think like I learn from what people have been able to do. So there are a couple of my role models in a way, like just for building a company in that sense, where they've done it as first-time founders, as people of color, or not even, or and people who've taken their companies from literally nothing to like the biggest companies there are in biotech, etc.
Mhm.
So I look up to them for motivation. I'm like, if they can do it, like what, okay, yes, they might have something special in terms of the science that they've created or technology that they've created, but I don't think that I'm any less in that sense.
Mm, mm.
It's
Um,
like, yes.
so-
And again, like when I speak to them, right, because I think like this community where people try to help each other a lot, it's like, oh yeah, we started from nothing. That's like the generic answer that I get from a lot of people. Not a generic answer, but like the most common answer.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's the same for us, right? Like we
Mhm.
started from nothing. And again, I think like like really, really believe that it's the resilience and the drive that really gets you in the end where you want to be.
So this word resilience, a lot of people say about it's the resilience. Can you just kind of like give me a little bit of an explanation of how you see resilience and how have you had to demonstrate that resilience to get to where you are?
I think pretty much every single day from the very start. Again, I'm focusing myself on the last 5 years.
Yeah,
But this is where again, firstly, I learned the meaning of this word by really living it. So
right.
it's so the first year we started was like in the middle of so June 2019. 6 months later, we had COVID, right? So again, a lot of company and a lot of founders that I knew, they were like, "Oh, we can't go through it. We don't have fun." So we raised like within a couple of months, like very very small amount, but it was enough. So I see COVID as a blessing because we didn't need to find a lab, we didn't have to go fly everywhere in the world to meet investors, etc. Everything became online. So we saved a lot of that money and kept it for R&D, right? And it became very common to introduce ourselves to investors mostly on Zoom. So we saved a truckload of capital there.
Mhm.
So that was the first time I felt, okay, this we can really do this based on just being sitting at home or sitting in London. And that's the first level I would say where I felt, okay, because I could either be in the lot of people who said, oh, it's going to be really tough and let's just give up, or stick it through. And I have to give credit to my co-founder as well, right? We both decided that we were unpaid for the first 2 years of our journey.
Yeah.
We were very sure that this pot of money is going to go into R&D exclusively. So into the company, we're not taking any salary. So 2 years living in London, based off our postdoc or whatever salaries or savings that we had, super, super tough. Like I would not recommend it to anyone who's got a family and want to look after kids or partners, etc. It's really hard. And
Mhm.
again, like for me, like it was the driver. I'm like, I really want to try and do this because this is the right timing for me. And somehow, like for my co-founder, it was fine as well.
Mhm.
Again, I have to say that we came from strong backgrounds.
Yeah.
So if something did go wrong and we went, I don't know, bankrupt, we would have that backing, right? So again, so for people who don't have that, it is a critical decision. And that's why I think your why needs to be very, very clear.
Yeah.
Get about the how, like just think about the why, like why do you really want to do it? A lot of people right now want to start companies because it's a cool thing to do. Oh, it's nice to have your company. It's nice to be a founder. No. As a that could be one of the reasons, but like a very, very like a trivial reason that you want. Like it cannot be your main top reason. I think that so those two instances, I would say like giving up salaries, giving up like after like a well-paid job, right?
Mhm.
And also like that time we were getting like I personally was getting a lot of offers where people were like, oh, just join this company. And I would be like, I would say I have to use the word minting, like I would be minting money
Yeah.
by now.
Yeah.
Uh, and there I was like, no, I'm very happy being like not paid, but
Mhm.
doing really like developing something that I really believe in. So I think that first, so these two elements, like able to fundraise right before COVID, going through COVID, sustaining through COVID, and then right towards 2021 was a major round of investment. So again, like in the midst of COVID or towards the tail end of COVID. And that was purely because we were very, very insistent that we firmly believe in this idea. Like no one believed in vivo gene editing and cellular reprogramming. This is essentially what we're doing.
Mhm.
Uh, but we were very, again, I think we have, at least I know I can speak for myself. I had this irrational belief that we can make it work. I still do.
Mhm.
After 5 years, I still do. And I think that's what keeps you going. And that's
Mhm.
why I say I use the word resilient. So 2021, we got a first round of funding. We were like, okay, looks good. We'll get a lab. We got a lab. We still got a free lab. A
Mhm.
lot of people once they get the first round, they're like, oh, we'll spend X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
We'll go here, we'll get a fancy lab, we'll fancy office, hire 10 more people, blah, blah. We did nothing of that. We were
Mhm.
2 people until 2020, mid 2022, or September of 2022. So
Mhm.
3 years in, we still 2 people doing
Mhm.
everything. Because
Mhm.
again, I was very clear. Again, this finance management came from me like undergrad or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was very clear. I'm like, we have to keep it lean. We have to put in all the money that we're getting into R&D. Yes, you
Mhm.
need people to do R&D, but till that time, we were confident that yes, we can handle it
Mhm.
because the science was quite like we could do it. And we were working with academics. So like I think 2 universities helped us out immensely that time. Or academics helped us out immensely that time where we could either use a lab or use their resources
Mhm.
minimal extent, or pay for them after
Mhm.
after some major funding. So I think for it's a long-winded way of saying like if you again like if you really think that your idea has legs, I think a lot of people do, but like you've got validation now. We got validation in terms of science, we got validation in terms of what people were talking about or starting to talk about. And now, like, whenever we get a lot of inbound interest because everyone wants to do what we're doing. Every single like conference I attend,
Yeah.
every single partner I would want to partner with are talking about what we're doing. So
Yeah.
again, so it's just like we believing in the idea and making sure that, yeah, you're so driven that yes, you're willing to put in all eggs in that one basket. I know a lot of people say don't do that, but for
Yeah.
me, like that's what we did, right? Like I didn't have a side job, I didn't have a side hustle, I didn't have anything else on the side. And I was like, I'm going to do it because I really believed that yes, we can make it work.
Although you said that you put all your eggs in one basket, I'm going to beg to differ. You put a lot of eggs in one basket, right? You did put a lot of your eggs in one basket, right? But you actually had so many other skill sets because based on what you've said, you were CEO, you were R&D specialist, you were this, you were that. So you've become much more rounded, I suspect, as an individual and how the system actually operates than had you just stepped out of your position as a postdoc and gone and worked for somebody else, because then you would have been putting all of your eggs in one basket because you would have been just saying, I only have one skill set which people are willing to pay me for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I meant like all eggs in one basket, like in terms of like what I was doing. So into deliver
Yeah,
bio.
yeah,
That's what I meant. But yeah, in terms of the skills, definitely.
yeah,
Definitely, like I think I would have not learned whatever I've learned in the last 5 years anywhere else.
yeah,
Like from finance to accounting, I had like zero knowledge. I remember my first investor, like main serious investor conference, they were like, oh, send us a P&L. And I was like, how do I create a profit and loss statement? Like again, I had done it in undergrad because like
yeah.
I liked a lot of electives. I was like, I don't know how to do it for a business. I literally had to again go back to my mentors and they're like, really, you don't know? And you're this founder and see, I'm like, yeah. But again, I don't shy away from saying things I don't know
Yeah.
and asking for help. Because I could have easily, after that first reaction, I would have been like, oh yeah, I know, I can send you that. But then you know what I did after, like, yeah, it was a stupid thing to ask a pre-seed company for a P&L.
Mhm.
Like that's literally I tell people, like if you get asked today, like I shouldn't be saying this on a public, I'm like, that investor is not right for you. Like why are they asking you that? It's going
Mhm.
to change the minute you send it to them.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, why do people make you go through business plans and profit and loss? Like, no. And this is something I've learned from my current investors, right? They're brilliant. Like, I really, really think like we've got lucky with our first main set of investors.
Mhm.
And this was something I asked them, like once we got the funding done, blah, blah, blah. Now they've been into investors into the company for the last 3.5 years now. And I asked them, do you think this was a valid question? Like, this is me 3 years later. And they were like, no. It makes no sense. And I was like, okay, someone else believes the same thing that I did. Because I did go back to that investor and said, why do you need it?
Mhm.
Why do you need a
Mhm.
P&L? Why aren't you just like asking me about the science and the vision that we have? Like
Mhm.
that's what you want at that stage,
Mhm.
right? When it's a
Mhm.
two-person company, we've got no data. We've just got
Mhm.
an idea. How
Mhm.
will I produce a P&L? Besides the fact I didn't know how to produce one. So that was my get away in a way, right? I'm like, I don't want to say I don't like to him. I didn't
Yeah,
want to say that I don't know what it is or I don't
yeah,
know how to create it. I'm sure I could have, like I would have asked
yeah,
friends or whatever. But for me, like knowing the why again, I'm like, why do you want it?
yeah,
And
yeah.
people, again, as founders, shy away, right? Like, oh, he or she's an investor. Why you don't ask them questions? And I was like, it was again the curiosity. I was like, what do you mean? Why do you need this? It was a
Yeah.
very naive question, I would say, but like I think it ended up because he didn't have an answer. He's like, oh, just because we asked everyone. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not the answer, right? Like that's not like, and I was
That's
like, so I think, yeah, I've completely forgotten what your question was, but this is like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Don't worry. I'm just wary of time, and that we're kind of like running towards the end, right? And it's been a really insightful discussion that we've had. The challenges that you've faced as a woman in a new emerging field, right? The resilience which you've demonstrated. There's 2 points which I want to just kind of like highlight, because the reason how the two of us came together was because you reached out and said, I'm going to be given a purple plaque by UKR.
Innovate UK.
Yeah, and that's when I started to look at the stuff that you've been doing in more depth. Can you just give the listeners an idea of what you were awarded for? Why were they recognizing what you have done?
Okay, so there are three. So this is an award that also, for people who don't know, Innovate UK is the UK's national agency which funds, which puts public money into young companies. So their entire idea is based on, if as a young company you have huge potential, but investors are not putting in money into your company because they think it's really high risk, you don't have enough data. In our case, we didn't have that. The government tries to support you because they really believe in your idea, and the potential of the team. So we won. So this particular award that I won is called Women in Innovation. It's a really small pot of money, 50,000 now. Now they're doing 75,000. But the idea with this award is not just to advance the science in a biotech world. Like 50,000 doesn't mean a lot, but it was more to tell women, in my case, women of color, that if you really do have an idea, go ahead and take it forward. We're there to support you. And again, they want women to come into the entrepreneurial side of things. So for us, it was, yes, I'm a woman of color, and also like the idea that we have this in vivo gene editing and cell reprogramming using nanoparticles. When we started in 2019, we were the second company in the world with that idea. There were only 2 companies in the world doing what we're doing. So first in the UK, we still remain the only company in the UK to be doing this. So obviously they wanted to encourage the UK innovation and science, and back people who like really are doing things for the society. So it wasn't again driven by, look, I'm going to develop one more app, so to say, like in the software world, right? Like a lot of people do that. I'm not saying it's bad or anything like that. But for us, like it was very driven by the social outcome, like how making therapies for the masses. So I think they like that aspect as well, because given that we're in a social healthcare system here with the NHS, so they really like that aspect. And like we want to deliver on that. So it was an award in the recognition of, yeah, me as a leader, me as a scientist, and the technology that we're developing at Deliver Bio. And then promoting science to young women and girls.
I think I think based on the conversation that we've had, I think that's really I'm so proud of being able to have been associated with you and making sure that there is a plaque at Imperial which bears your name, right? And I'm very glad that it is there, to be honest, really am. I think you're an inspiration and I've many of my students who I teach, I forwarded a couple of them to you because I've said, have a look at this young woman. She's doing great things, and I believe you too could do great things. So you have definitely become a role model for other young women in what they can achieve if they put their minds to it. What we need to do is still remove some of those barriers that are preventing them from being able to excel without having to try and ask for permission to get into the space. And I think that's
I wanted to say remove the barriers and like knock them down. Why do we need to seek permission?
Yeah,
Honestly,
that's what I
like,
mean.
we're not in the world where like, yeah, like you cannot, like if you keep seeking permission, it's like you'll never get anything done. And
Yeah.
that's again something that comes to me after running this company, right? Like if you keep seeking for permission and being like, oh, you're nice, this being nice thing is definitely overrated. And you learn that as soon as you start your company, you can't survive if you're being nice.
Yeah.
It's not that like you have to be mean and you're not kind, etc. But it's just like, yeah, this mindset that especially women have, right? Like, oh, am I being too loud? Am I being too aggressive? Because we're told that, right? Like
Yeah,
we told that, yeah, if you're ambitious, you're not thinking of your family, you're just thinking you're selfish.
yeah.
Don't believe in all that.
Listen, I'm going to ask two final questions, and that's it then, right? That's it. I could talk with you for hours, and I really would like to. What advice would you have given to your younger self, right? Whether that was the 16-year-old, 17-year-old thinking about going off to medical school, or whether it was at the point when you were starting your degree, not your degree, kind of like making the step across, right, into entrepreneurship, business owner, etc. What advice would you give to that young woman? And then the second part of the question is, what do you think that those young women would look at you now and say, wow?
Ooh. Okay. So the first one, I think I would still say like believe in your own capability. So I think like I was very shy of saying that out loud that I really want to do. Again, I had support, yes. So I got lucky again. I use this word, but I do feel that I got lucky there.
Mhm.
But because I came from a family where all the women were doing stellar things. So
Mhm.
for me, like believe in your own capability and don't shy away from being yourself. Like I still to the day believe that. A lot of people, it's a very yes and no situation for me where people are like, oh, I really like you versus I really don't because you're quite straightforward. You
Mhm.
speak your mind. So I just say like, don't shy away from being yourself. It's really important. Everyone else is taken, right? Like you, your own unique self.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so don't forget that. I would say that to my younger self for sure.
Yeah.
And in terms of the wow factor, I don't know. I think, yeah, so would again use the word, if I had wow factor, like if I, yeah, from a younger self, I would say it's my drive and my resilience again, of getting things done. My drive supersedes everything else. Like as I said, like that's why I don't shy away from asking questions. I'm like, I really want to get there. How do I get there? My resilience again, if there's a stumbling block, how do I go around it? How do I be agile? And persistence, right? The stubbornness, like it's not stubbornness. It's just like I really want to leave a mark in the world. I really want to help those patients who are suffering every single day,
Yeah.
really want to help their families. So I think it's like that really, really know your why. So I think my why is very clear. So that would be my wow factor.
Fantastic. I just want to say a big thank you for being our guest today. It's been a truly inspirational, um, truly inspirational session. You've done so much, and I'm just looking for the next 5 years to see where you end up, because I can see some great things happening. Not I say 5, 3 years, because I think you're a woman on a mission, and you've got time, but you don't want to take up too much time, if that makes if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I think like yeah, I've said certain things that I actually didn't realize they were within me. So it's good to talk about these things. But no, thank you very much, and thanks again for getting my plaque
Yeah.
into Imperial. I think that's been my highlight this last month.
No, it was definitely my pleasure, to just assist in the journey to get you there, because you've done all the work. I was just trying to make sure people recognize this needs to go up. So I'm really pleased with that. So I'm going to just let people know what's happening in a couple weeks' time. And just share the screen with everyone. So in a couple weeks' time, we're going to be having a conversation with, so please note that the date, it's going to be the 5th of July. We won't be having one next week, but on the 5th of July, we'll have Abdullah Al-Bayati, who is the CEO and co-founder of the medical chain and My Clinics. And he's also the chair of the RCGP Yorkshire Faculty of and NHS Digital and NHS Entrepreneur Mentor. So he will be our guest next week. And if you have missed any of the previous belonging, then please go to our YouTube site, which is tinyurl.com/belonging-IAO, where you'll be able to catch up with many of the other videos and the other guests who we've interviewed over the past few years. And another push, I'm going to just put another push out for a book which I'm very pleased will be coming out later on this year, which is the Black PhD Experience, Stories of Strength, Courage and Wisdom in UK Academia. There's the editorial team. Please pre-order the book. There's some fascinating stories and insight into the journey of Black PhD students. But until next time, what I'd like to just say is a really big thank you to all of the guests, a really big special thank you to our guests for today. And always remember that you do belong, no matter where you find yourself, you belong there, all right? And don't let anybody ever tell you any different. So until next time, I just want to say a really big thank you, and I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Bye-bye.